Are ghosts real? Several recent encounters suggest there might be more things in heaven and earth than we can dream of.
So are werewolves just a Hollywood creation, or do half-man, half-wolf creatures really exist? Now, tonight, we kick off our Conspiracy Theory Month series, which was a...
The legend of the vampire actually goes back for centuries, and it exists in some form or another in almost every culture. In fact, some people believe the first vampire story was in the Bible.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along.
Try and clear up an ancient mystery with the help of a prominent veterinarian who says she can prove that Bigfoot exists and that he's related to all of us.
New reports, 5 pilots coming forward over the weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning into Season 4, Episode 8 of the hit underground paranormal supernatural radio show known as Celestial Oddities P.O.N.G, Pair of Normal Guys. I am your host, Frater Crow.
And I will be your co-host, Daniel James.
It's a pleasure, as always, to have you guys and gals out there listening in. Make sure you click the like, share, follow, and subscribe buttons on whatever platform you're tuning in from, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. It is appreciated by you doing so. Helps move us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, and keeps you in, the loop with new episodes as they air, gives you unfiltered access to our past archives as well. There's quite a bit that we put out through Celestial Oddities Radio, whether it be our show Uncovering the Underground, which has since retired, or Knights of the Nephilim, based on occultism and esoteric doctrine, or this show here, P.O.N.G. We've put out roughly 200 episodes of radio under Celestial Oddities. So make sure you go back, check it out, watch, share it around and spread the word. We really appreciate it. We are on episode 8 this season, so you've already either seen or missed 7 previous episodes. So make sure you go check those out. Last week, Dan, we had 2 weeks ago, we had a great guest on Azario Flame talking about his ritual practice and some of the things that he does, his books coming up and courses. I think it was a great episode and a great, discussion.
Yeah, he's exactly the type of person I'd like to talk to and have on the show. And I really liked him as a person, and I was fascinated and interested in the things he's done. And he's offered to be on his show as well. So I'm going to keep in touch with him and see what happens.
Yeah, if you are unfamiliar with Azario Flame, he is a practitioner. He does ritual for hire, but he's also in the midst of writing a couple different books on occultism and ritual. He's also put out a couple really detailed, expansive courses on how to learn to work with energy, how to work with spirits, and how to really kind of achieve your godhood and go within and kind of find out who you are, and a lot of different steps to that. So make sure you check that out. He just launched his brand new show. I think his first episode was actually this past week. So make sure you go check that out on his page. Once again, that's Azario Flame. He was our last guest, and we had a good time with him. Now, tonight we're going to do something a little different, guys. We're going to do mini conversations. And, me and Daniel like to go on tangents. So these mini conversations might be longer than mini.
We might get to like 2 of them.
Yeah, we might get through a couple, but we're going to spit out a couple different topics, discussions, happenings, events, and spitball back and forth on ideas with them, the things that we like to do on the show. And then later on the show, we'll do a special little tiny segment. I want to go over my top 10. I've been asked several times by people, where my favorite locations that I have gone to and investigated. So I figured I'd do a top 10 locations that I've been to personally and experienced happenings, so what the place was, what I experienced, and then just go down through the list pretty quickly. So stick around with that, and we'll go ahead and get things started. Daniel, if you want to jump in and tell everybody, what your ideas were, and I would love to, spitball with you.
Yeah, man. I was really excited about doing maybe almost like a top 10 list, top 5 list of just general paranormal encounters that might be noteworthy. Natasha. And so I put together just a small list of a couple things that I found to be noteworthy, some things you may have heard of, some things you might not have heard of, that I wanted to share from my own metaphysical perspective, maybe adding some insights that some people, haven't considered yet. So I do have a small list here, and what do you think, brother? You want me to just go ahead and start on the first topic?
Yeah, so jump right into it. I'll hear what you have to say, and I'll come back with any additional thoughts that I come up with or agreeances.
Okay, cool. So this one, a lot of people have to know about this. In the general sense, I think that it's reached a mainstream awareness for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. So my first topic tonight will be the concept of the Slender Man. Okay, many people have heard of the Slender Man. I'll give you a little bit of a sort of a lore on him. The Slender Man was originally a fictional paranormal entity created by a user online named Victor Surge in June 2009 on, I think it was a forum website called Something Awful. I think they were having some sort of competition on creating some, in a sense, a fictional entity and creating a backstory around it. And for whatever reason, this particular character by Victor Surge became popular. It took off, and then it started to get recognized by Creepypasta, which is a very popular platform website about, in a sense, cryptozoology, but also a lot of fictional lore, fictional entities, creatures that people would make, and then do stories about cartoons, low production value video games. And so he kind of blew up. Well, by the time people heard about the Slender Man, people didn't actually know that he wasn't real. He was being sort of sold, in a sense, depicted as a real entity, a real paranormal creature, as a cryptid that had these supernatural powers. He was this entity that was seen being different heights, different 6 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet tall. He had some sort of like a white head, a white face with a black suit and a red tie. And he was known to have sort of, in a sense, supernatural powers to teleport. But he was most known for his sort of psychological warfare. It was said that he would create, like, one of his things was, as a malevolent entity, he would create what's called as proxies, where the proxies were people that would get infected by his sort of psychological abuse that he would put people through, and then give them visions or make them do certain things. And so, like I said, by the time I heard about the Slender Man, I didn't know that it wasn't a real sort of cryptid or a real local lore, because the nature of the way that they would design these fictional characters, it was just being depicted as real, as a real urban legend, in a sense. So I didn't know that it wasn't real at the time. And I think a lot of people were sort of hit by that same sort of misdirection. Like, say, for example, when I was a kid, there was obviously the Blair Witch Project. Well, when the Blair Witch Project came out, nobody knew what a found footage film was. They weren't popular yet. They didn't know that somebody could shoot a movie, write a script, and shoot it like a film that was, in a sense, done on a video camera that was shot and edited in a way that just looked like home videos. I thought the Blair Witch Project was real when I was a kid. So I was having that sort of same phenomenon with the Slender Man. Now, you take kids, you take teenagers who are even more impressionable, and it might even be harder for them to discern what's real or fake in terms of the internet, right? And now you've got this sort of like psychological entity, this creature that is fascinating and had all these supernatural abilities, and was sort of not possessing people, but getting into their minds and sort of driving them crazy. So the reason why I chose to bring up the Slender Man tonight was because he, as an entity, was a fascinating phenomenon that, as a fictional character created by somebody on the internet for a competition, became so real to so many people that, like myself, that they couldn't discern whether or not it was a work of fiction or sort of like a real phenomenon, like an urban legend. And my film team actually did a fan film about the Slender Man because it was such a phenomenon at the time. There was video games, people were battling for the rights to produce films about it. It was like this huge movement. And then it led to tragedy, which I imagine I would almost guarantee you've heard about this, Frater.
Yeah.
That basically there were 3 girls that had become obsessed with the phenomenon, the entity, the creature. That 2 of the girls, in a sense, essentially used it as an excuse to kill one of their friends, and then this girl was stabbed to death, which is terrible. I almost didn't even want to bring it up on the show tonight because it really happened, and it's just one of those things that, a fictional thing manifested in a real way that led to real circumstances. And so I wonder, with you, talk to you about the concept of egregors, and we've covered that whole egregore idea that a collective belief, a collective perception on a particular topic can make it real, can manifest it real. And so I wonder if those girls who killed their friend in sort of like a tragic incident, did they really see the Slender Man? Did they really think that it was real? Or did they just use it as an excuse to do something terrible because maybe they had some weird, bizarre social dynamic amongst, teens that maybe they wanted to kill their friend for whatever reason, and the Slender Man was just an excuse? Or did it really infect their minds and create them to be proxies, the way that the lore of the urban legend, in a sense, of the Slender Man is? So that was my first topic, my phenomenon of like a top 10, top 5 strange paranormal things that reached like a mainstream awareness. Is What do you think, man?
I think it's very possible to be any one of those following avenues. I mean, could it be just that these girls had a dark side and wanted to enact that out, and they were able to use Slender Man as some sort of excuse to do so? Absolutely. That very well could be plausible.
Right.
But as you said with egregores, I mean, that is also possible as well. Thought forms and egregores, where if enough people believe in it, enough people put their energy and vitality into that belief, it can start to take on a form of its own.
That's what I'm
Now,
saying,
this
yeah.
can come in two different forms, though. This could come as a thought form or an egregore, where you are creating a being who now exists. And to people not familiar with this concept, it is very possible. It's actually used quite frequently in magic. It's used quite frequently in black magic, where you create a being, you give it a name, an identity, or actually, let's take a back step. You give it a visualization, a form, what its features are, what its mentality is, what its attributes are as far as what it can do and can't do, the genetic makeup of personality type, its type of ferocity, and so forth. You give it a shape and a look, and then eventually you give it a name, because you can control that which is named, just like Adam in the Garden of Eden, as it says in the Bible, named each and every animal. Therefore, man had dominion over animals. That is why they specifically say it that way in the Bible, is once you name something, you give power over it. Just like they say in Catholicism with exorcists, what is the name of the demon? Because once the demon gives you its name, or you discover the name, you can have control over it. Now, this is not always the case, but it is very much true in certain regards. So
I agree.
If you have a Slender Man, you have this ideology of what it is, what it's about, what it does, even as a character, a fictional character. Now you understand, okay, there's this thing, this is all of the items pertaining to it, and then you start to put your focus and belief into it, whether just because you want it to be real, whether you believe it is, or whether you just have a fear of this thing, like a horror movie. You're putting enough into it. Could it manifest and come to life? Yes. But what could be more plausible could be that there was a separate spirit taking on the identity of the Slender Man.
I did consider that.
Yeah, where, I mean, oftentimes spirits will try to act out as something else. So, for example, we hear stories of, Ouija boards, where people are using Ouija boards or other divinatory items, and they come into contact with a being that says it's something that seems so just absurd. It gives god names of ancient gods. I'm Beelzebub, I am so-and-so, I'm Astaroth. And could it be? Yes, but most likely it is just a smaller, lesser spirit or deity trying to be something greater, because then you fear it, you respect it, and you're then feeding it.
Yeah.
So could it just be the spirit of a human dead, non-human dead, some other type of astral being or elemental that took on the form of something these girls were obsessed with and already liked? Well, that's an easy in. If you see these easily susceptible girls that you can trick, and that they're, obsessed with the Slender Man, and you're watching them, then you say, well, I'm going to pretend to be the Slender Man and start appearing to them, and then get them to do all kinds of horrible things. I mean, people have to understand, if you're a horrible person in life, when you go on as a spirit, you're usually a horrible spirit, so it doesn't have to be a demon or an evil god or anything like that. It can just be the simple spirit of a departed person who likes causing havoc
Yeah,
in these young girls and just wants to cause pain, but then also fed off that pain. He's
that's
feeding
right.
off, tricking them. He's feeding off their fear. He gets them to kill a friend. He's feeding off the essence of that soul that just died, or that body that just died. And then he can feed off of the sorrow and pain of the other friends and family members of that girl that was murdered. So it can be a great way that a spirit finds sustenance, from that unfortunate happenstance, or circumstance. So
Wouldn't it be bizarre, but almost plausible, that if entities like that, astral entities that work with our realm, they work with our version of reality, and they can actually use people that are maybe open or susceptible to the concept of influence. And so, what if the Slender Man was real? What if it was a real entity that used Victor Surge as a vessel
yes,
to write it into existence?
very possible.
So, interesting
No,
twist.
Well, and I like that, because that was actually going to be something I was going to bring up, and then you jumped into that. That's perfect, because one of the things I was going to say is we also have to look at what is reality? How do we define that? What parameters do we put around that? Because inspiration is a divine attribute. When we are
Right.
so suddenly inspired by something, to write a
100%, bro.
story, to film a movie or a documentary, when you have this overwhelming sense of inspiration and passion
100%.
and insight, where does it come from? It comes from either your higher self,
That's right.
or it comes from other spiritual beings that are giving you insight. So what we don't realize is, I am the creator of this character. I drew Slender Man. I gave it its look. I gave it its name.
Mhm.
Yes, you did, in the sense that in the physical plane, in the physical
We're the
realm, you did.
facilitator.
But you were the facilitator for something whispering in your ear. You just might not be tuned in enough to spirit to know that it was whispering in your ear. It was giving you the divine inspiration to make this thing. Now, when I say divine, it doesn't necessarily mean, folks, holy.
Right.
It could be a darker being
That's right.
whispering into our ear saying, bring this into the physical world, because once you make that real here, it now has a doorway in. As you are now putting on the internet, Slender Man, it already existed. But now, since it's being seen, heard, and known about by the masses, that is its astral gateway, its wormhole into
See?
our world. Here I am.
This is a good
So those are
talk.
very big possibilities there.
And are really useful ways to look at the nature of reality when we're discussing how, stories are created, where inspiration comes from. I think that we're speaking a lot of facts here. It resonates with me very much. So I'm glad, actually, now I feel even better about choosing this topic, because even though something terrible happened, if anything, this could give people more insights on the mechanics of this. So if they ever want to, learn how to protect themselves, or learn how to choose what they invest their time and their energy into, here we go. This is good.
No, it certainly is. I mean, you have to be careful out there, folks. One thing that people don't seem to understand is we want to think that this is so real that when things seem bizarre, that it's like, no, no, no. What you have to understand is there's multiple planes of existence and reality above ours,
That's right.
and even below.
All around us.
But all around us. And this is one of the most densest and slowest
Yes.
and boring realms that there is. So
Mhm.
we think that this is all there is. So when something crazy happens, we're like, oh, that can't be real. No, folks, Bizarro World is every other plane, and we're even including this one, but all the planes around us, what we would consider just unbelievable, is everyday occurrence in these
It
other
is the
spiritual
nature.
realms.
It's
It is
normal.
the nature. As it gets lower in density, it becomes more dense and physical, and we become
Right.
humans. And because we have this avatar in this body and we move around, we don't think often of the spirit. We think with the meat brain, we think with the
Right.
sponge.
The senses.
So, yeah, and we sit there and say, well, that can't be real. That's so spiritual. That's so ghosty. That's so, bizarre. Well, that's because everything is that. It's only during this 50 years, 20 years, 80 years, 100 years, however long you live in this specific body, that you're encased in this type of thinking. Once you die, you go back to that spiritual realm, and then you're like, holy
Rapidly
shit,
returns to you.
this is what I was. And then if you come back in the reincarnation wheel, then you're going to forget again and have to do it again. But
That's right.
we're so limited in our thoughts. You have to expand the mind, because almost everything you can fathom as being just a fantasy is already in actuality happening. And we just don't see it because we limit ourselves by our limited beliefs.
Hey, Michael, welcome, brother. Thank you for being here, man. We're talking some cool metaphysics. We just discussed the Slender Man. I'm glad that we did, because like Frater and I used to go off on these riffs where the idea would spark a really cool conversation. And I'm actually glad we had this one, because what we're
Absolutely.
talking about right now is just the way I see reality all the time. And, getting to talk to about it with you here on the show is some of the only opportunities I have to express the way that I see reality on a daily basis. So one little quote I'll have, and then I'll move on to the next mini topic is, if you, let's see, how do I word this? If you don't understand what's natural, then expand your idea of what nature is. So
Makes sense.
I might have that backwards. I'm kind of trying to come up with a euphemism is on the fly, but in a sense, expand your idea, your understanding of what nature is, so that more of what is natural, makes sense to you. So all of these other realms that we're talking about, these other versions of reality, they're all contained within our consciousness. They're all here and now. It's just that our 3D senses limit us from perceiving them. So the Slender Man for very well could be an entity under the same name or an alternate name that, in a sense, manifested itself through Victor Surge. And there you have it.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Great topic, man. We had fun discussing that one.
Cool, man. Well, I'm going to move on to an extraterrestrial UFO event. Go figure. Daniel James wants to talk about aliens. I'm going to give you guys something a little new, though, on what I feel is one of the most noteworthy extraterrestrial UFO phenomenon in the United States. Even bigger than the Kecksburg UFO, which I almost considered talking about, but we've brought it up so many times. We've physically been to it. Here, let's get into this, guys. Who here has heard of the Phoenix Lights, or sometimes known as the Lights over Phoenix?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I would guarantee somebody listening in chat or hears this later has heard of that event. So the Phoenix Lights were a series of widely sighted, unidentified flying objects observed in the skies over the southwestern states of Arizona and Nevada on March 13th, 1997. This was actually showcased on the news, and it did go mainstream. And so the couple notes I have about the Phoenix Lights was a clear and present display of the presence of extraterrestrials. 100% without a shadow of a doubt. Those who saw that, or if you go to YouTube, go to Google, search up what that looked like, you can guarantee without a shadow of a doubt it was a display of the presence of aliens. It wasn't fucking satellites. It wasn't a weather balloon. Wasn't animals, it wasn't fireworks. I mean, that was seen over multiple states. And so another note I have is that it was seen further than those southwestern states, and it made it all the way to the West Coast, because I have a personal friend that I grew up with, a friend of my family, who actually witnessed it in Washington State, where I actually grew up and spent 17 years, which is full of ley lines, full of paranormal esoteric activity. I have seen more UFOs in the state of Washington than I have in anywhere else in the country, growing up there over the course of 17 years. So my friend, Jennifer, who always told me that she witnessed the same thing that those states did that same night, was the formation of the lights that were in a specific pattern and just traveled over the course of a couple states. So what I want to tell you guys about the Phoenix Lights is in all of my years of extraterrestrial contact and working in the channeling community and making ET contact in whatever ways that we can that are not physical, we actually figured out what that whole program was, what that display of presence was. And it absolutely was a deliberate display of the presence. The message was, we are here. Your government, your controllers, the news, nobody can hide from you the fact that we as a specific ET race exist. This wasn't a coordinated effort by multiple races like a federation, but it was one race doing a rebellious act, literally breaking a prime directive law, so that people would start over the course of time to accept little by little that there is life on other planets. The name of the extraterrestrial race that did this was called the Yael. The Yael is a very humanoid Lyrian type race, just like humans are, although they're a little bit shorter than us. They don't have as much hair. Their skin is a little bit more pale. They all pretty much have like these big, beautiful eyes, these big, beautiful blue eyes. They're a hybrid. They're a hybrid of the human archetype, or what we would call Lyrian, and some Zetas. I don't know what Zeta species, but there's like 150,000 subspecies of the Zetas, which are the little green men, which are the most popular ones that we're always seeing depicted as aliens. And so if you was to hybridize the humans with a Zeta variant, you would get the Yael. They're technologically advanced, they're spiritually advanced, they're interstellar, they're part of federations, and they love humanity very much. They're also another race that's a little bit rebellious, obviously. The fact that they did this whole Phoenix Lights idea is a huge act of rebellion. It's a huge breaking of universal laws. But they did that for us. They did that for humans, knowing that humans are literally kept in the dark about the presence of extraterrestrials. And so it would, to a degree, take a little bit of a sort of rebellious act to help us start questioning, is there more? The only way the journey of the expansion of consciousness will ultimately start to peel back enough layers, peel the onion back far enough that we will start to accept as a collective species that obviously life exists on other planets, that there are almost a countless number of alien races. And we can get to that point from our own individual journeys in the expansion of consciousness. But I do appreciate a little bit of rebellion on the ET side, which I call Star Family, that I feel like, care about Earth and humanity very much. That once in a while, you got to have some of those rule breakers that are going to do some shit that's going to help us push us in that direction. So the Phoenix Lights, not much more to be said about it other than the fact that it was the Yael extraterrestrial race. They are in orbit. They are in Earth's orbit now. They do have a lot of star seeds on Earth. They are helping humanity to the best of their ability. And that whole big display was a synchronized plan of attack, in a sense, in a positive way, that people would be talking about that for years. It reached mainstream media. It reached the news. So many people saw it that it was an undeniable evidence of the presence of more than humanity. So that's what I wanted to say about the Phoenix Lights.
No, that was a very big event. I mean, as you said, it was able to be a conscious awareness to a great deal of people, not only physically that were there to see it happen, but the footage that was taken and shared all over the world. It's hit so many documentaries. It's been brought up so many times in history since that time, that it has helped awaken a lot of people to the possibility. And then obviously you fast forward many years later, and they have court hearings saying that UFOs do exist, and we've been in contact with them, and a lot of other things that are happening. Now, whether all that's true or not doesn't matter. We have come leaps and bounds since the time that the Phoenix Lights has happened.
Right.
And there's been other videos of very similar lights like the Phoenix Lights. I actually seen one the other day. It would be fascinating to throw on our page. I don't know where I seen it, though. It was like very quickly in passing. And it showed multiple lights in the sky, just similar to Phoenix Lights, and then two of them just dive bombed out of the sky and went straight into a body of water in front of the people filming it, like blasted into the water. And they were like, "Holy shit!" And they were surprised from it. Was an awesome video. So I mean, these are out there, and it's something that is fascinating. And if you pay enough attention to the sky, you will see happenings that just don't quite make sense with what, once again, you were trained to believe. So to have a race of being that comes forward and says, you know what, we're going to do something that is a little risky, a little renegade, but to do it in a way that'll wake up the populace of this planet, to make them aware that they're, because you got to think a lot of other alien races know that there's many other alien races and other planets and galaxies and star systems. We live in a planet, or on a planet, that has been kept sheltered. Now you can say that
Quarantined.
you could say it's because they don't know better, or that they're trying to protect us. But the fact is, the less knowledge you have, the more easily you are to be able to be maneuvered and pushed into your
Manipulated and
corral,
controlled.
and manipulated and controlled. So to know that there's aliens and to keep it from you, to know that there's spiritual dimensions and keep it from you. The military and the governments out there have access to devices and machines and to dimensions and things that most people can't even begin to fathom. And they already have access to it. Their technology that the military has is already hundreds of years beyond mainstream's technology that we're using now. The whole world's going ape shit over AI. They've been using AI for decades and decades, folks. Past the use of what we're even using it for now. They bleed it into the population slowly, just like when they first introduced the cell phone. they already had ideas of apps and video cameras and audio and everything that you have in your smartphone now. That was thought of before the first cell phone came out. They slowly bleed piece by piece in so that you slowly integrate to what you are trained to believe. So,
That's right.
same thing with misinformation or withheld information. If we don't tell you there's multiple different races of beings out there who visit here frequently, who are all around us, who we work with and some against,
On a
the
regular
betterment
basis.
of the human race, then you just don't know better and you go about your normal day. And even though you have freedom because we're free, which we are in a way, you are also at the same time a herd of animals being herded. So it's something to think of. So it's great whenever these renegade colonies come in and they do something to say, hey, we're going to make a big shitstorm tonight that people really can't, turn their head away from
There's
easily.
no
Yes,
question.
yeah, there's always going to be people that are naysayers and say, "Oh, yeah, that was swamp gas reflecting off of
Yeah.
the moon," and because they're taught that it can't be real, so they try to make an excuse that's comfortable for them because it's not comfortable to face the reality that we are not alone. I actually think it's more comforting to know that we're not alone, but
Yeah, me
most
too.
people would rather think that we are alone out there and that out of billions of planets, we're the only one with intelligent life, which is just absurd.
Well, I'm going to come back. I'm going to circle back. Michael, I do hear you. I'm going to circle back to the aliens in a minute. But let me jump into the Sasquatch because once again, Daniel James got to talk about the Bigfoot. My next topic tonight is an incident that I guarantee nobody heard about in regards to the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot entities. This one is a little bit interesting because it gets into that concept of controlling and manipulating our perception. Let me just say this. Our government, our leadership, what I call the controllers, they know that Bigfoot exists. They know that the Sasquatch is a real species, that we have thousands and thousands of them all over planet Earth. There's actually 8 different subspecies of the Sasquatch creature. Another thing that people may or may not want to accept is that they can be dangerous to humans. And in certain circumstances, they do take humans and they do eat humans. Here's the thing: I'm not saying that to be like fear-based or negative, but look at about a species that is a carnivore. They eat meat, and you've got humans spreading all over planet Earth, eliminating forests, eliminating their natural habitat, quartering them into areas where they don't have a lot of access to food for survival. So what do? You just eat what you can find. So under certain circumstances, although not all Sasquatch are malevolent or evil people eaters, they do exist. Just like anything, you're going to have nice animals and you're going to have dangerous animals. You're going to have nice people. You're going to have dangerous humans. So that's the point that I want to open this with. So we do have Sasquatch species that do take people, they do kill people, but the big thing here with the government is they don't want humans knowing about the Sasquatch species because it does something to our consciousness where it allows us to question whether or not is there more out there? Does more exist? Are aliens real? I don't think that the Sasquatch are necessarily extraterrestrial. I think they're planetary intraterrestrial species, but they are, way, way, way far outside of like the realm of believability in terms of what makes a human a human. They bring the consciousness to question more. So I think they keep the existence of Sasquatch private because number one, they don't want us to accept that they exist because we then question what else is there. Number two, I do think the species and the race can be dangerous. They also don't want to create like sort of like a frenzy or a panic in the human collective that these beings are out in the woods, lurking around their houses in the public forests and the state parks, potentially picking up people and whisking them away into the night. So I can understand in the sense that they actually want to keep it under wraps so that people don't actually live in fear of them. And then, so those are some reasons why, because they can be potentially dangerous, that the government hides them from us. They keep their existence under wraps. It doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of things that happen between the Sasquatch and civilians, which is us, or the Sasquatch and our military, our government. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is a particular incident that happened in 2018 in Mount Shasta, California, which if you follow my work or you follow the show, you know that I've had personal face-to-face encounters with the Sasquatch in that area multiple times. It's a real community of beings that are all over that area. So much so that a lot of the locals in Mount Shasta, California, acknowledged them as almost like community members. So it's pretty interesting. In 2018, there was like a rogue renegade Sasquatch, like just a motherfucker, you know, like the assassin. You're dangerous. You don't want to run into him type of guy. We don't know if he was maybe genetically modified. We don't know if he was just a badass in his own right. But we had a Sasquatch that was dangerous, was attacking people in public, was destroying properties. And so what happened was our military, our government, they issued basically like a Delta Force of military soldiers that went out to Mount Shasta to try to hunt it and kill it. Well, what had happened was this Delta team was 12 people, okay, hunting a dangerous 12 people hunting a dangerous Sasquatch in Mount Shasta, California in 2018. And apparently the motherfucker was so badass that he killed 8 military Delta Force soldiers in the process of them trying to take him down. I imagine that these things probably have somewhat of what you and I would understand as supernatural abilities. I don't know if they can sort of like teleport on short distances. I don't know if they are just like so strong and dangerous that they can withstand a lot of damage, like something you'd see like a superhero in a movie or something. I don't know much about that, their biology and their physique, that how much damage they can take. But he killed 8. He killed 8 humans that had guns out of the 12 that were sent there to kill him. So that was an incident that happened, and apparently it took him like 5 or 6 days to find him and stop him. And none of the guys like slept or anything. They were just full time trying to hunt this guy. So I don't say this to make people fear the Sasquatch and the Bigfoot. I have had face-to-face encounters where they were not dangerous to me. They were not threatening. I never felt like I was going to be attacked. It's just like you got to discern every situation and the circumstance. It's per circumstance basis. So I'm not afraid of them. I don't think they're going to scoop me up and eat me, but they can be dangerous. And our government does hunt them and does kill them. And so this incident in 2018 in Mount Shasta, California, they did track this guy down and eliminate him. But the last thing I want to say that might make people feel a little bit better about their presence in the sense of them being dangerous is I do know that they can be sort of genetically modified the same way humans can. If you've listened to our show in the past, we talked about super soldiers and the secret space program. This is where our military, getting back to the concept of how advanced their science and their technology is beyond what our civilians even understand. You can genetically modify beings and entities and animals. You can hybridize them. You can, in a sense, soup them up. And one thing that I actually do know to be the case, which really sucks, is they can take a Sasquatch, kidnap it, bring it into some secret space program or some deep underground military base, and they can genetically modify it, turn it totally crazy, out of its mind, like a berserker, just a killing machine, and then they'll put them back into society on purpose to literally let them run amok and wreak havoc to see what happens, to study, what their reach will be, who they target, how many people they can kill. I mean, this type of, like, you talk about like other genetically modified creatures that have been created in labs and then released. They do that to Sasquatch too. Also in a way, I think, to demonize them and to make people even more afraid of them. So I wanted to say that last little bit on the end, that they sometimes are actually sort of turned against humans too, genetically, and then released into nature. And then you've got other factions, maybe other levels of the military that don't even know that he was made in the lab somewhere. And then our human military go out there to try to kill them, and he wipes like a whole team. So pretty interesting story. That came to me directly from the community that I work in with the extraterrestrials. And there was some other information about some Sasquatch too in the same area. But that was one story I wanted to share, that it paints a picture on what happens behind the scenes, whether there's like an X-Files or secret elite groups that go out and hunt monsters. Well, that shit really happens. There's an example of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that people really, I don't want to say shouldn't be afraid of, because I mean, obviously that's scary. But what I would say, folks, is, I mean, when's the last time you've seen a Sasquatch?
Right.
Most likely you never have.
Uncommon.
Very, very uncommon. And the chance of seeing one's uncommon. The chance of one being harmful is going to be even more uncommon because most sightings are not, associated with harm. And the chance of finding a rogue one that is as vicious and murderous would be even less so. So to know that that chance is almost nil is something that should give you comfort, because it should be more scary to you that we're surrounded by billions of people on this planet and all around you are actual murderers. So,
Dude.
You might say, well, I'm scared of this gorilla-like being that can wipe out 8 out of 12 trained soldiers, and that is terrifying. But that's a one-off, very strange occurrence. But on any one given year of you just going places, going to work, getting on the bus, traveling, going on vacation, you've passed multiple murderers.
That's right.
Whether they've been convicted and they're out, whether no one knows that they were murderers. I mean, you walk past murderers all the time. And at any given time in the United States alone, one country out of hundreds, there is 25 to 50 active serial killers. So not just people who have killed people, but people who have made it their hobby to go out and hunt human beings for sport.
Right.
So, it's not something to necessarily be afraid of. Is there things out there that'll kill you? Absolutely. But your fellow neighbor and man are just as easily possible and plausible that they are a murderer and could kill you before you're going to bump into, a cryptid that is going to mean you harm. Doesn't mean you want to bump into it, but it's going to be very, very uncommon.
You got to share that comment from Natasha because she's speaking my language.
Yeah, she said, humans are toxic. I'm here for Bigfoot any day.
Let's go.
So now I want to go over something real quick, guys, and I'm not going to jump a whole lot into it, but it's something I think people should pay attention to. Actually, we just popped up a comment from Natasha, and her and I were speaking a couple years ago at this point now, and she had asked about, we were just actually having a discussion about the Euphrates River, and she was asking if I would consider putting up a documentary about that or putting out a release on that. And I had plans to, and then I pulled back. But I think you guys should pay attention out there to the Euphrates River and it drying, because I've seen several videos. Whenever she and I originally talked about this, there was, I think, only one on the internet total. And it wasn't really that involved. Now there is dozens and dozens. There might even be over 100 now. And some of them are very detailed and go into depth. The reason that this is important is this is the first time that we know in calculated history that the Euphrates River has dried to a bone.
Right.
The reason that this is important, folks, is in Revelations in the Bible, it quoted that at the end of days, the river Euphrates would come to a halt and dry. And once it did, the 4 angels of the apocalypse would be released upon the world. Now, it dried up to almost a complete stop in 2020. And one of the angels of the apocalypse, or 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, is pestilence and plague. And COVID-19 hit the world. One of the other horsemen of the apocalypse is war. Ukraine and Russia, Israel in the country they're at war with right now. For some reason, it just escaped me, even though I know it on any other given time. So it's something to pay attention to, because a lot of people just mention the passage in Revelation. They mention that there's apocalypse coming and the 4 horsemen. There's so much more than that. In my original plan, I'd compiled a lot of data to put out a very nice video on. I still might have to do that at some point in time. It just takes a lot to motivate me to want to do that anymore. Is that there is multiple passages that explain, one of which is in hidden lore of Judaism that's not commonly seen in the Bible or anything like that, but in Judaic ancient lore, that when God separated the tribes of Israel into the 12 tribes, he separated a few of them across the Euphrates River basin from all the rest. Those are the rogue ones. We've used rogue several times tonight, so I'm keeping in that formula. Those are the rogue ones that he pushed back that shouldn't be around the rest of the populace. And once the Euphrates River dried, the 12 tribes of Israel would reunite again. And also it would let loose the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse can be traced to many different things. It can be traced to caves that have been now found in the Euphrates River basin, where there is actual cave systems under the river that they never knew were there. And we're not talking just holes. We're talking elaborate caves that look like giant prison cells, like something you would keep a giant in. And if you, in 2023 to 24, end of 23 into 24, they predicted that it would come to pretty much a full dry And there has been a lot of activity happening with multiple earthquakes around the world, crazy weather patterns happening recently with flooding all over the place, volcanoes erupting in multiple areas, coastal lines cracking and breaking apart. So look into this, folks, and pay attention, because there's other activities happening, such as the Nephilim giants that were recently spotted in Florida in the mall and were fired upon people.
Yeah, that was my fourth topic.
Yeah, people were talking about UFOs and aliens running through the mall, but you could relate that to spirits that are let loose because of this river drying. There's multiple other things said. Like I said, once the trumpet sounds, the end of days will come. Well, one of the things that is talked about, and it's like, once again, beyond the Bible. Most people don't know a lot of the other text out there, but Dudael was said to be the prison of all the fallen angels, where once the battle of angels happened and the Watcher Grigori angels fell, slept with the women of man, and created the Nephilim, when God sent the angels to come down, his sons, to try to right what was wrong, he captured all of the angelic demonic hosts and locked them in Dudael, which was a prison, almost like Tartarus, in the ancient lores of mythology. And this Dudael was said to be of the east of the Garden of Eden. And east of the Garden of Eden, in their cage in prison, is the Euphrates Basin. So multiple sources talk about the fallen angels being imprisoned and locked under the ground. Azazel, one of the king demons, one of the king angels, was locked in Dudael and left to stay there forever until the end of days. Well, all of these angels were said to be where the river Euphrates was. The 12 tribes were said to be separated, and he sent the unfortunate ones, so to speak. Well, that was a symbology of him sending his children, not just human children, folks. The 12 tribes of Israel was also spiritual, and he sent the demonic hosts across the Euphrates, or in other words, spiritually under the Euphrates, and locked them away. Well, the Euphrates has dried, guys, and there has been an unleashing of spirits. There's been an unleashing of things that'll plague this world coming up, for sorrow, for pain, but ultimately for an ultimate cleansing. And it's something that most people will fear. If you study into it, it is terrifying. It's something that most people will be afraid of and run from, but it's also something that's probably very needed for this human race. So I only speak for myself when saying that. I don't share the ideas of anyone else, but pay attention. There's so much more I could say, so much more I would put into the video if I do end up releasing it. At this point, before it was, I didn't want to release it because I just wanted to keep it to myself. Now I don't want to release it because everyone's talking about it. I don't want to jump on that hip train and being like, oh, I'm going to make a video on it. I was planning this 2 years ago and had all this information compiled, but I figured since we're talking about many subjects, and with the recent sightings of the Nephilim and some of the other things happening, with 2024 being when it's really coming to a stop, something heavily to pay attention for. With enough digging, you can figure out who the 4 angels are, who the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are, who the 3 angels that'll release them are, and so much more. If you dig in that rabbit hole, you can connect many dots that paint a giant canvas of astonishing information that is very frightening, to be honest with you.
No, man, I totally understand what you're saying, and I distinctly remember you telling me this story a couple years ago as well too. If you ever want to do a video on that, I'm sure it'd be interesting to a lot of people. Let's double back to the alien sighting, the monster creature sighting in Florida. I think this was on January 5th, if I'm not mistaken. That was my 4th mini topic, and I'd love to hear what your opinion is, and I will tell you what mine is first. So, Michael, if you're still listening, or if you catch us later, this does touch on your comment from earlier tonight, because I totally agree with you, man, in regards to the way that the government sort of has all these agendas to basically sort of steer people's perceptions and their beliefs on a particular subject in the direction that they want it to go, so that they have control. So there was this incident at a Florida mall around the beginning of January. How perfect, how appropriate at the beginning of the new year. I have personally been suspecting that the controllers are planning a fake alien invasion using technology and using advanced technology that we don't, military weapons, all kinds of stuff that we know nothing about, the type of shit you only see in the movies. I think they're planning on a fake alien invasion against humanity, against civilians. And what my opinion is, what my perception of that event was there is Project Bluebeam. There's some technology that can actually take a hologram that you can totally, like in a computer, like CGI, like visual effects, you can make a 3D image, a 3D shape of whatever you want, and then you can project it into our real world the same way that you would see something in VR. Like you're familiar with virtual reality headsets or like the whole meta bullshit universe, trash garbage, fucking don't ever go in there. It's a nightmare. Virtual reality idea type holograms that are actually projected in our 3D reality. Okay? What some people are speculating is that those entities that manifested in the mall, these very large, tall, sort of shadowy, wispy creatures that we're seeing teleporting in and out of reality and jumping all over the place, scaring people, that this might have been part of a slow tiptoe into the direction of a fake alien invasion, which would be a very negative, malevolent thing done to human civilians by our own leadership. So I think they can take holograms, project them into physical reality. Like if you look up videos in Japan and China where they have these beautiful displays of like these whales and spaceships and stuff that they can actually manifest in reality that look real, but they're just a hologram being projected from somewhere, and people are like reaching out and trying to touch these things. They can have animals. Like someone sent me this video where they have these polar bear holograms at an exhibit where they like literally look the same size, shape, and color as a real polar bear, and they're walking around people and they're trying to touch them and shit, but they're not real. So what if, hypothetically speaking, option number one, this was just technology by our own leadership, our own government, meant to scare people, get them terrified of a real extraterrestrial race making their presence known, not like the Yael from the Phoenix Lights, but more so a malevolent sort of intervention. The reason why I bring this up is because over the past couple years, you're seeing UFOs that are captured on like military radar. We even have a clip of it in our intro video that I put specifically, clips from the military that were featured on the news. So when you have mainstream media and the news acknowledging extraterrestrial unidentified crafts, but they're not sort of like leveraging it in a positive or a negative way, but keeping the mystery and the allure and the intrigue there, then when you start having more face-to-face encounters in public places that are more accessible to civilians and people are scared, because if a 10-foot, 15-foot shadowy figure manifested in front of you at the mall while you're having your fucking ice cream and you just bought a new pair of shoes, that's just not where you want to have a peaceful encounter. Under those circumstances, it's generally scary. Most people were running and terrified. Well, that's any positive extraterrestrial race would not do that. They would not do that. Not in a way like that was fear-based. Okay, there's a difference in the energy. The Phoenix Lights, the Yael, formed a beautiful pattern of lights of a coordinated ship sighting above multiple states as a display of we are here. We come in peace, but we're here we are. This Florida event is these giant creatures that are teleporting in and out all over the place, phasing in and out of reality and stuff, and people were terrified and running, and all these cops showed up, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Look it up. You can find a lot of people talking about it on TikTok and YouTube. But positive races don't do things that scare people. They don't do things that create such an unknown sort of like what sci-fi type of like freak of nature thing is happening to me. Am I in danger? They just don't do that. So that to me right away says that it was either a malevolent sort of display of fear by our own controllers using technology that we're not very familiar with, or let's take maybe option number two. Maybe it was an actual ET race, but maybe they were malevolent. Maybe these were the type of tricksters that don't mind breaking the prime directive law. They don't mind breaking the rules and breaking universal law that says, do no harm, cause no fear, leave no trace. That's a code of ethics that a lot of ET races live by. To to make sure that they're not negatively having a negative impact or interfering with the growth and the evolution of the human consciousness. So whenever that happens, for me right away, it's a red flag that it was either some sort of malevolent trickster breaking laws for the wrong reasons, or it was our own government setting the stage for something bigger down the line. Now let's go to option number 3, which opens the door to maybe just a different perspective. Where Frater mentioned earlier, what is your perception of this event in terms of like, what could it be from your version of reality that maybe isn't a negative ET race? Maybe it's not the government using holograms. What do you think it could be?
Well, I mean, it very well could be those things, but one thing that I have personal gnosis of in working with is that, once again, the Euphrates River can be something that people just use as, this is a scare tactic, or this is just by chance that the Bible predicted this and it happened. Well, yes, it could. The Bible predicted a lot of things, but we also have to make an understanding that the Bible predicted hundreds of things that actually did happen exactly as predicted to happen. So that is an important thing. And it's not just that, hey, when the Euphrates River dries up, then, you know, the world's in trouble and that these angels of the apocalypse are going to be let loose. As I said, when you connect the other stories and realize, well, wait a second, a completely separate story than Revelations talks about the fall of the Grigori angels and imprisoning these angels in a specific area east of the Garden of Eden in a prison, which correlates with the Euphrates. And then you start seeing about the tribes being set. You start to put it all together and you say, oh, wait, all of these different pieces are building a picture that there was some event, whether alien race, whether spiritual, whatever have you, that something was chained and locked away. And when the Euphrates dries and then you find giant caverns under the river that look like giant prison cells, and you're like, oh, and that's factual, folks. You can look that up. That's like, holy shit, okay. Now, people playing videos where you can hear what sounds like angels screaming from under the ground, that's obviously, fraud, folks. People are adding that to the videos. Prison cells are truthful. Now, what we have to understand is when people think of that, they think, okay, so the river dried now and these giant monsters are going to climb out and we're going to see them. No, these are spiritual beings that in an astral plane were chained and locked away where the Euphrates is on the astral. But on the physical, it takes form of the astral. So when they locked them away in the astral, it created physical prisons here under the Euphrates basin.
See, I'm glad you said that. People need to know that
manifestation of it.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. I want you to keep going, but it's really important that we emphasize and notate what you just said, that when things from the astral or spiritual realms are what I call densities, there aren't, in a sense, densities or dimensions, but you can use that as an analogy. When you have different realms that are separate from ours, if spirit is coming through to our physical reality, there is a translation process where the physical appearance or the physical shape or the physical size or the physical manifestation of spirit coming into our realm translate differently, and it appears differently. That's all I wanted to say. Keep going.
No, absolutely. And I mean, that's the thing is people expected, okay, we're seeing these prison cells, but we didn't find anything in it. We didn't see monsters climb out. Well, that's because on a spiritual level, they've already climbed out. You just didn't see it with your physical eyes unless you're trained to see something of that nature. And as they come out, they're spiritual currents, they're spiritual energies like a river, but they can flood multiple areas. As I said, it's no coincidence, folks, of COVID-19. It's no coincidence that plague hit the world and killed a lot of people, and that was just the beginning of it. It's no coincidence this war is running rampant. It's no coincidence that all these earthly events of volcanoes erupting and all this unnatural flooding and strange things that, yes, they do happen on smaller scales. They're happening very clustered together happens. One of the riders of the horse, or one of the horses of the apocalypse, horsemen, I should say, the only one to talk, which I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, was the black horseman. He said that the weight or the price of the weight of grain and barley would go up. What that signifies is that prices of everything that you're buying would go to an extreme level and there would be shortages.
Which we're seeing.
Yeah, we're seeing shortages of everything. Yeah, you could say it's because there's not enough employees making things. Sure. But it has an effect on all of these parameters. So things have went way up in price. There's way less of it. Pestilence and plague has hit the world. War has hit the world. And you're also going to see, and as it says in the Revelations, that once these 4 angels come loose, they're going to gather their legions of millions upon millions of demonic soldiers. And it actually just describes what they look like, which is terrifying. And they're going to sweep the world and kill over 1/3 of the human population. Now, why this is important, folks, is I believe that in a sense this is going to happen. A lot of people could say that's just some doomsday talk. That's just, you're crazy. One of the other reasons I believe this is going to happen is there has been ancient texts that go back as far as humanity is existence, actually farther than we once believed humanity even was here, to the races of beings that talked about the Viracocha and talked about Quetzalcoatl. You're talking South American indigenous tribes that we found stonework and statues and things buried in the soil that once carbon dated came to dates that pre-existed what we believed humans were even here by a very, very long shot. It's not on the TV, it's not on news, it's not on media, but this is scientifically documented. And they talked about the Viracocha. The Viracocha were these beings that rode across the oceans and the water on what seemed like magical serpents. And they rode across the water almost as floating, like a UFO, folks. And they came to the lands. What's interesting is they were white. And they were white beings, they were Caucasian beings, and this was long before any Caucasian had ever made it to America or South America. They were statues that they found carved of Caucasian males hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before Caucasian males ever came here. And also African faces carved long, long before slaves were brought over here. So what they were able to deduce is that obviously our existence and what we're told history is a lie. They've covered up a lot of things. There's artifacts that were supposed to be destroyed that weren't, and they were discovered. But they talk about 5 epochs of human existence. And at the end of each epoch, the human race is wiped clean, almost every one of us. And then humanity dawns again. And then they build up, and then something catastrophic happens. It's always a cataclysmical event. The last great epoch was the deluge flood that the Bible talks about. We think that that's one of the beginning of times, Noah and the flood. And now obviously, Mesopotamian lore was before Judaism and talks about different names, same story, great flood. And every one of these stories from all over the world, all these tribes who had no contact with one another all talk about a great deluge flood. They all talk about people surviving in a boat. They talk about a couple surviving within a tree trunk that climbed inside with their children. They talked about people climbing to the top of a great tall tree and surviving. It always has something to do with a wooden vessel, people surviving and respawning the world again from their offspring. Why this is important is it describes the birth and cataclysmic failure of 4 epochs out of 5. And it was told to them by the great messengers of the Viracocha that there would only be 5, and upon the end of the 5th, it would be the ending of the human race. We are currently in the 5th epoch of humanity. The date people got wrong. They believed that the Aztecs thought it was 2012. They only got that far in their calendar predictions, but the calendar was between 2012 and I believe 2035. Somewhere in that window would become the end of the human race.
Now, do you call that an extinction event?
Extinction event, absolutely. Okay. And it's supposed to be the final one. What's interesting is if you match that with the Euphrates Basin, the unleashing of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that was talked about in the Bible, if you match that with them wiping at least 1/3 of the human race off the planet right off the bat, and that's not all that's going to die. That's just once they're fully out, that's what will happen. Then you start to look at events that maybe in our lifetime, that we might see the apocalypse of this world. Now, this is important because, like I said, we only know back to the last epoch. We know of the flood. But what about the other 4 that they talk about in tablets and things that are found that they don't teach us in school, they don't put on the news, but they do exist out there, and you can find articles on them that talk about other pre-existing civilizations of humanity, such as Atlantis. There's talks about Atlantis.
Lemuria.
Yes, exactly. These different, Tatari and these different places that are out there. So I think that very well could be something that we are facing right now, is an extinction event that's soon to come to pass. And we are seeing the dawning of that. And this is not the first time. It has happened multiple times. We are erased and reborn, but supposedly this will be the last one. Go ahead.
One thing I'll say, just as a thought, I study a lot the concept of symbolism and metaphor. And there is actually a really complicated, intricate, but beautiful sub language of metaphor and symbolism. And a lot of extraterrestrial races that I work with not only have used symbolism and metaphor in the past as a type of like total language, or they wouldn't speak in linear terms like us, but they would use depictions, visual depictions of things that would allude to a greater meaning. One idea that I'd like to offer you is that perhaps we don't assume this in a literal sense. I am a believer of extinction events. I know that we have had them on Earth, several, and the other planets of civilizations and races like humans have had them as well. I absolutely, with the shadow of a doubt, am open to the concept of us having another and or possibly a final extinction event where the Earth is in a sense a reset. Now, if people have ever heard of the concept of, like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it, like the Agenda 2030, things like that, I think that an extinction event, although could be literal, it could also be taken symbolically or metaphorically, where life as we know it, society and civilization as we know it, could radically change. And so when we talk about the horsemen, what if in a sense they aren't like physical horsemen, but they could be symbolic metaphors to something like a great wave of change, bringers of change, that perhaps reality as we know it doesn't fully end in terms of like an extinction event, although I'm open to that being the literal case. Perhaps it could mean like society as we know it will change for the worse or for the better, but maybe not that. Maybe that doesn't mean that like we're all wiped out, but like I mentioned, that agenda, things would be a lot different. Like if you could jump from now to that point over 6 years, things would look so unrecognizably different from the way that we understand society now, that it would have seemed like a total shift in reality, possibly like life as we know it is extinct, and now here is what it's like now. And that, I absolutely do believe that is a major depopulation factor in that too. But what I am just posing here as a suggestion is the power of symbolism and metaphor used in whether it's Egyptian history, lore, mythology, however you want to look at it, Norse. A lot of cultures and subcultures have used the concept of metaphor and symbolism in their language, and it is quite literal. But however, it is like even in the world of tarot, sometimes the death card doesn't mean physical death, but it means a great change. So I wanted to propose that to you as an option available, that perhaps it is metaphorical extinction, or maybe a literal one, and we're all fucked. You go.
I mean, we have to once again take it's something I've always taught to any class I stood in front of, or any, a lot of people I've talked to on metaphysical items, place of pivot. It depends on your place of stance, your place of pivot, because could it be the end of the human race? Yes. But does that mean that's the end of the world, or the end of reality, or the end of the universe? No. So we've lived our 4 epochs, or we're in our 5th epoch, and it ends. Wipes the human race off the face of this earth. The whole world implodes. Let's say it's gone. Well, yes, that's terrifying. But once again, guys, you're an endless being just placed in these bodies. You're fractals of the God Force energy, the Godhead. And, Robert Oppenheimer said, I am death, the maker and destroyer of worlds. That's what God is. He makes and destroys worlds every day. There's multiple races out there, and he destroys them and plays with them as his pawns.
Right.
And sometimes he lets them go on a natural course for a certain amount of time until it's time to pull the plug, and then you pull out a new game and play it. Hey, we've lived our course. So you said, maybe it's symbolic, but yes, symbolic can also be physical. And what I mean by that is people look at spirits or demons or angels as they're always physical form. Mm-hmm. No, they only take a physical form when they choose to take a form that you can comprehend with the mind of a human vessel. They are like electricity. Imagine the electricity in your breaker box or your fuse box.
Right.
It can be used to light homes, it can power cities, and it can kill thousands at one time with an explosion of electric current. But you house it through the right conduit and it can be used. That's
Right.
what spirit is. Spirit is this crazy chaos. There's only two elements in the world, folks. There's chaos and cosmos. The demonic, the infernal, the chthonic beings are the chaotic element that wants to take all of the cosmos and turn it back into nil, into nothing, into back to chaos.
Sure.
You have the cosmic items that battle against it. When you put force inside of form, it always starts to deteriorate. The world's constantly in a state of death and rebirth and renewal. Human beings, the second they are born, they start to die, because the second you put force, spirit, into form, it starts to die. This earth will eventually collapse. It will eventually die. The human race will eventually die. It can't last forever. But these spirits, they take form that we can receive them as. So the four horsemen of the apocalypse can be four massive oceanic currents of chaos that come through and transform into our understanding as war, as famine, as
Sure.
plague, pestilence, as death. And does that mean that it's a demon with a giant mace standing in front of demon hordes and you're seeing that? No. But does that mean that metaphorically, yes, there is this chaotic current that is intelligent, that acts independently on its own,
Right.
that manifests itself in many different ways to cause an extinction event? Absolutely. But even if we all die and the human plague is wiped from this earth, we still exist. We still return back to sender. And then we become a different alien race that's on a
Mhm.
different planet, that has a different story and a different history.
That's right.
We're playing video games, folks, except we're physical beings that have sensatory, faculties to us. This is a video game. And when we say that, no, I don't mean that like this is all digital code, but in a way it is. It's created by this thing, this God form. No one has to agree with me. But
No, I do.
and when we die, we come back because you never die. So what's the point of just sitting as a cloud? We're sent into different bodies, into different aspects, into different worlds to experience all this different shit so that we can entertain ourselves and entertain who we truly are, which is the original source.
That's right.
There's never been a time that the universe didn't exist, because nothing can come before the all. There can never be anything outside of the all to contain or stop the all, because the all is all. All is the all, and all is inside the all. We've always existed. We will always exist. There's nothing outside of us, because we are everything at once.
That's
So when we think of that, there's all kinds of funky shit that takes place. So yes, I think we could be seeing the end of the human race, absolutely. But does that mean that we won't exist again as some similar being? Or the human race
Absolutely.
won't be born again on a different planet that maybe isn't called Earth? Absolutely, because we've
We are
always
the
done
all that is. We are the
Yeah.
all that is. And if you could zoom out away from our limited 3D senses, you'd be able to see the valley from a much more bird's eye view, right?
Yep.
We're down here.
Forest of the trees, you have to walk away from it, and then you see the forest. It's
That's
there.
right. And even if there is an extinction event and humanity ends, we are all of this. And we are also the ending and the new beginning. And trust me, when you leave your physical avatar, your physical vessel, and you zoom out and you wake up from the dream and you say, oh, fuck, I thought I was Daniel James, but no, I'm really this entity. I'm really this being, and I'm really here in this place. And that was just an experience, a quantum probable experience that I had for the sake of just the experience of it. And it was all temporary, and now I'm awoken from this dream. Now I can do this. Now I'll do that. Or maybe if you want to, you can choose to incarnate back on Earth, back to this version of reality, but in a different time period, maybe in the 1800s, maybe in 1920, maybe 1755. And there is no linear cause and effect the way that humans understand it.
Well, there isn't. And I mean, we like I said, we try to rationalize everything that can't be rationalized. We are beings that crawl out of a human doorway.
Hmm.
We crawl out of a black, dark womb
Hmm.
into this reality and say, holy shit, we're alive.
Yeah.
We were a sperm that fertilized an egg. We were these little organisms that became a being that's on a radio show right now talking to you. But we crawled out of a pussy hole, and boom, here we are, out of a doorway, out of a wormhole. We came from nothing. into physical reality. We go into the ground and we die and we dissipate. And some people say, well, will we go somewhere else? That was just a sperm and an egg. How did you get this consciousness? The consciousness is reality. That's what you were before you came here and inherited this body. It's what you are after you leave.
Right.
And like Daniel said, as you reach in deeper levels of yourself, you awaken that you are not Daniel James. You are not Frater Crow. You awaken to the being that you are, the deity that you are. Now, here's the trippy thing, folks. You go levels beyond that. That deity, that angel or demon or whatever you want to call yourself, awakens to the fact that it is God. You go a little bit farther, and that God awakens to the fact that it is nothing, no thing. It is chaos. Out of the darkness came the light. God said, let there be light, and the world came into existence. God existed before light, before understanding, before a conception of anything. So you are the person, or let me say this, you are darkness playing a God, playing a deity, playing a person.
That's right.
And you shed those layers upwards and you become nothing, no thing. And by doing that, you become everything.
Yeah, it's the paradox.
The experience, and that's a paradox. There's a great book out there called The Divine Paradox. You should read it, folks. It talks about many, many laws of paradoxical truths that have such deep meaning that'll change your life. But when you hear them at first, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. That's the point. You have to ponder on it. You have to reflect on it. As you do, it opens up higher levels of consciousness. Because once again, we were imprisoned here. The true Satanist, folks, I'm a Satanist, but I'm not the same type of Satanist as a lot of others. There are Satanists out there that I call Satanists that try to keep us trapped here. They do everything in their power to keep us trapped in the human vessel again and again and again and again and again
Right.
as wage slaves. We are wage slaves. We power them, and they found a way to reincarnate here. Our goal for the most people, the great work, is to escape this, to never be reincarnated and to reach back to source.
Correct. And that's what I believe the guys like you and me are doing. This incarnation alone serves a great purpose in a sense that we are climbing our way out of the need to recycle.
And a lot of Christians will say that that's evil work by doing that, to try to do what I do. And it's funny because that's the most holy of works to actually do. And then the people that do these things that portray themselves as holy is actually the most satanic, because they want to stay here. They found, the elites have found a way to stay here again and again and again and actually carry their consciousness from one life into the next, plug it into a new avatar, bring that person back, and they can live for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, folks.
I know people that are doing that here in society now.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening, and they're controlling things. They don't want to leave, because if they keep you here as slaves, wage slaves, they reap the money. They're trillionaires. They do whatever they want. They can have all the fruits of desires over and over and over again. That is true Satanism, folks. The not wanting you to free yourself, but the wanting you to stay a slave forever. I'm wanting you to free yourself from the dogma so that you can truly get back to God. But that might be the most evil of pursuits, from what some say. So something certainly to ponder on. Now, where we at time-wise? We are at 9:51. So what
we didn't get to touch on a single of your cool, awesome locations, man. You got to drop us one, dude. Pick one or two that you are noteworthy.
Well, let's take a look. So I was working and compiling up a list of the top 10 places that I've been and experiences. I'll go over the first couple. We can always touch on them again, folks, if anybody wants to know where they're at. I've been fortunate enough to travel a good chunk of this side of the country and do investigations, not only at famous locations, but at private homes and residences, to businesses, to country clubs, to you name it, to graveyards, to woods, and everything in between, in many different states. And you know, an event that I talked about that I won't touch too much on, which came in at number one, was a place that we call Hell's Gates. And it is where I was young and performed my first occult ceremony. It's where a friend became possessed, where we heard pterodactyl sounds coming from the woods, and what ultimately would be the moment that in this life would change my trajectory forever, and everything that I've done, becoming an occult teacher and an esotericist and all of that. But what I realized later on, and what I learned later on is that is actually was the awakening of me in this life to multiple lives that I've had prior, because I've already been a magus and already been a teacher and a ritualist for many, 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 many years. And it kind of recollided in this world, and it had to happen. But this was the location that happened, so that'll always come in number one of all places, and that was Hell's Gate. So go back to past episodes.
Where is that? Are you allowed to say that?
It's in Pennsylvania. I don't want to give the exact location because unfortunately, we talked about it when we were younger, and the word spread. It was like a what do they call it? Urban legend for a lot of people. Like our story became an urban legend for a lot of people across many towns. And what happened is all these kids started going there on the weekend, treating it as like a joyride. And then there was times where people vandalized, and it's a giant cemetery, but the whole half of the cemetery is ancient tombstones from the 1700s of children. And some sick fucks went out there and smashed dozens of fucking kids' headstones from like the 1800s. So I've never given the location again after that. Now, I don't think that was because of me. Other people knew of this place.
But
I know
still,
a
you
lot
don't
of
want to
people
draw
went
attention to it.
there. So yeah, I don't draw
Oh,
attention.
that's cool. Got you.
Very cool place. Now, number two would come in at Bel Air House. That was also a possession. I've talked about that on past episodes.
That I'm familiar with.
But many different voices that we've heard there caught on recordings. Who is there with us? Voices have come back saying the devil. No, obviously I don't believe it's the devil, but we've had voices of the devil. And who are we speaking with right now? A demon. I mean, these voices, as we mentioned earlier, are spirits portraying themselves as something else to get that fear out of you. So very wild location. Number three, Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia. I would say that that's probably my favorite location, but it's number three on the list because it's not as extreme as the first two happenings, but just a phenomenal building, the largest stone structure in the world made of sandstone other than the Kremlin in Russia. So the second, I should say, largest sandstone structure in the world. It's fascinating. You get lost in it. It's like Stephen King's Rose Red. It moves around. You literally walk down a hall, turn around, and the doorway's missing. It fucking does shit to your mind. Now, physically, it's not changing, folks, but it somehow gets into your mind and makes you believe that you just came from that way. And when you turn around, the doorway is gone, and you're like, and not just you. I was with multiple people, and we experienced this multiple times. It's very, very peculiar. It's not something you normally experience. 4 comes in as a place that I will not give the location either, but it's a ritual that I did in a cemetery in the middle of the forest, miles from anybody. It's an old abandoned cemetery. And during the middle of the ritual, it was a massive lightning storm. Lightning bolt hit a tree right next to me, split a giant chunk of the tree off that fell literally feet behind me. And if it would have landed on me, it would have killed me instantly. And it landed behind me, but I actually felt the force of electricity from the lightning bolt go across the land, and it went through my body, and it felt like for about 3 or 4 seconds, I was levitating off the ground. I've never felt anything
like weightless.
Weightless. I literally felt like I was floating. I didn't know what happened. I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? But within like a 3-second period, the lightning struck, tree snapped, the thud hit. I lifted off the ground, or what felt like, and then it all just went back to normal. And I looked around, and I was like, holy shit. But it was right in the middle of a demonic evocation of a spirit in that cemetery in the middle of the night. So it was
very cool.
Pretty cool experience. And I'll just shoot through these last couple real quick. Bill Manor. Bill Manor in Fairmont, Ohio. I'm trying to remember all the town names. Natasha was there. I was there. A couple other friends were there. And we had a weekend where we stayed at this location and had phenomenal information given to us from the spirits there. There was said to be, it was an orphanage at one point in time. And it was said that there was a kid that died there, and are suspicious circumstances, and they believe the kid killed themselves, but they have no evidence that, one way or another. And through our investigation, especially Natasha and I, we were able to use a series of tarot readings and dowsing rods at the same time, back to back at the same time, and got definitive answers again and again and again and again all weekend, to where we were able to paint a very, very vivid picture of what happened, of this child actually being murdered from one of the other children at the orphanage. He told us how, he told us who, he told us when. He gave us a massive amount of details that no other team ever uncovered. Now, when I let the owner know, he did say it was interesting that we said murdered and pushed down the stairs, because one other group at one time said they got the message pushed downstairs, but that's all they got. we got the full painting of a picture, and we were able to, jot down a lot of very, very good information. We returned back at the end of this year for a 2-dayer to try to dig a little further. And it was a very profound communication session over 2 days. I skipped one, Octagon House. Octagon House, all I'll say is very unassuming. You look at Octagon House, you don't think it's much. You're just like, it's a cool looking octagon old house. I've never seen so many visible full body apparitions in my life. It's very rare to see them. We've seen 7, 8, roughly in one night, 2 nights. We were there for 2 nights total. They were literally walking all over the balcony around us and making massive noise. We said, "Can you make a noise for us?" And one sounded like it was gagging and making ungodly noises. That was, the whole team heard. It was very profound. One of the most active locations I've ever personally ever been to. And that's in Ohio as well. Ohio is just a fucking, the motherload of paranormal. And then we have the last couple, Wildwood Sanatorium in New York. We're returning to in about a month and a half. I was there by myself, spent roughly almost 50 hours there, 100% alone, drove up to New York, and didn't experience anything the entire weekend except one event where 2 a.m, sitting on the couch, eating a sandwich, something ran down the steps full force, threw the door open because there's actually a door at the bottom of the steps, ran down the hallway right past the doorway. I seen him run past me and smashed into the room with incredible force that literally shook the floorboards. And then I said, "You don't have to hide. You can come out." And I watched a man lean around the corner and look right at me as I was sitting on the couch 6, 7 feet away, stared right at him. And then he pulled his head back. And that's all I experienced the whole weekend, but a very profound happening. Hillview Manor, Mary Virginia's bed shaking uncontrollably with no one touching it, just da, 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 and it's like a 200-pound old hospital bed. Ross House, we were just there recently with my team. And in the basement, I've been pulled on or touched before. In the basement in pitch black, a child grabbed a hold of my sweatshirt and yanked on it 2 times, hard enough that it literally pulled me backwards. And I turned around, and obviously no one was there. A very strong pull, and there's children that hide down in that basement. That one just sounded like a tweaker. I'm not sure which one we're talking about. The Wildwood one, maybe the one that ran past and smashed in. It was very sporadic, silence for like 30 hours, and then down the hall, smashed into the wall. It was crazy. But what's interesting is not Zach Baggins, but the other guy that used to be with him on the show. I don't watch those shows. Was there.
Aaron something. Was it on
It might have been the
Ghost Adventures?
It was one of the guys from Ghost Adventures, but it wasn't Ghost Adventures that was there. The one guy who still has a show was there before I was there. And when he got there, they were standing outside talking, and something smashed into that same room, and a giant mirror that was bolted onto the wall came down and smashed all over the floor before they even went in. It was that same room that this thing ran down the stairs, ran in, and smashed into this room. So for some reason,
he was like, "Have fun."
Like a loop of this being from time to time just fucking running full force and smashing into the wall. And then the last one was Blennerhassett Island in West Virginia. This was an island at one point in time that Native Americans lived on. There's Native Americans buried there, including a chief of the Native American tribe. There were slaves that were brought there at one point in time as slaves to this mansion that is on the island. The mansion burned down a couple times. They rebuilt a replica of it, which is a beautiful mansion that you can go and look at. And it's just this big island surrounded fully by water. You're taken there by a ferry, you're dropped off, they come back the next day and get you, and you camp in a tent. And a lot didn't happen necessarily visibly or audibly, but there is a section of the island that has the most obscure and strange feeling as you're there. At nighttime, you're walking by, you just feel the presence of stuff all around you. And I didn't know this at the time, but that is where the tribal leader was buried. They told us that later on. Oh, that section of the island's actually where the Indian chief was buried. And it made sense. That area had such a unique energy and feel to it. So that, folks, is my top 10 locations I've been to, including personal experiences that I've had with each and every one of those 10. Always going new locations. We have several new this year, that we're looking forward to. A couple of weeks, we're going to St. Albans Sanatorium in Virginia for 2 full days in February. It's going to be fucking freezing.
Cool.
We got Madison
Yeah.
Seminary, we got Hinsdale House, we got Wildwood Sanatorium, Bill House, and Octagon. Some of the ones I already mentioned we're returning to, and there are a few brand new ones. So, one thing we always say, if you have any experiences, you want to hear us do something different on the show, you want to come on the show, anything like that, feel free to email us at celestialoddities@gmail.com. Again, that is celestialoddities@gmail.com. We have a Facebook group page. Drop on there, make friends in the community, share with us your experiences. And we just love you guys being a part of it all. So thank you.
Right on, guys. Thank you for listening to our stories. We hope that this was thought-provoking. You can, question. That's what we've always wanted, was to just question, ask questions, look at things from a new perspective. Frater, listen, brother, this was an awesome episode. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight and, giving me the space to flex my metaphysical muscles. This was awesome, man. Let's do it again.
Absolutely, folks. Next Thursday, which would be next Thursday, the 25th, 8:30 to 10 p.m., we are bringing on a good childhood friend of mine, Michael Bowser. He goes by Mikey B. He is the documentarian and one of the team leaders for Bump in the Night Society, a group of investigators here in the Pittsburgh area. Me and him have experienced a lot prior to ever even making teams. He was a member of my team once upon a time. As the team split and kind of did their own thing, they formed Bump in the Night Society. They've gone on to win multiple, accolades for being one of the top TikToks in Pennsylvania, from just being at multiple conventions all over the country and putting out great documentaries of their experiences and evidence that they've caught. They've become one of the premier teams in the country to watch out for. And we'll be bringing him on to pick his brain on what his thoughts are on the paranormal, some experiments that he's doing. He's very much like me, where he does out of the box experiments with energy that is not your typical that you hear in the paranormal field. We'll talk to him about making documentaries, like I said, what they're planning on doing this year coming up, and much more. So make sure you check that out. We have some other guests lined up for February. We have a couple more topic episodes for February, and we have a call-in Oddworld episode. So like I said, if you have experiences, you want to come on the show, you want to be a guest, you want to send us in and be anonymous, or just send us in and have us read it off, any of the like, we would love to have you on or read your happenings to the audience out there and ponder on some of the possibilities. So thank you so much for your support. And Daniel as well. I appreciate, the back and forth on some great topics. As always, it's always a great time. And I guess we will see you guys next week on Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, guys, right here on Celestial Oddities P.O.N.G.
Peace.
Take care and have a good night, everyone. Be safe.